you will reject me. That is according to Plato, using his allegory of the cave from 2,400 years ago, when he describes the prisoner who escapes the cave, sees the light, becomes enlightened. He sees things that he cannot unsee, and he comes back to free his fellow prisoners. And instead of accepting this knowledge, they instead reject him outright, violently so. They would rather kill him than confront the possibility that their worldviews are based on a distorted perception of reality. And that is exactly where we are headed with this channel.
Bonjour amigos, welcome to the Calabolas. I'm editing the video now and I realized I forgot to do my intro, so I'm just getting that in there now. But I also wanted to say that I don't actually think you're going to kill me like in Plato's allegory. At least I hope not. But you know, this is a very real story. It's not just a made-up allegory. So there's lots of examples throughout history that we could point to, but a logical one in this instance is Socrates, Plato's teacher. He was sentenced to death by his peers in Athens for essentially coming back in the cave and trying to share his wisdom with the fellow prisoners. His official charges were corrupting the youth, but really what he was guilty of was making people uncomfortable with the truth, and they killed him for it. Now, I'm not trying to compare myself to Socrates, but like Plato's allegory, when I point to something that, you know, you've essentially built your identity around, and I call it a shadow, your first instinct is going to be to question me, not the shadow, right? Just like in the allegory, the chained prisoners reject the enlightened prisoner who comes to free them. They don't engage with the ideas and reject the ideas, right? They reject the enlightened prisoner. So yeah, let's get on with the video.
So I talked about this quite a bit in my very first video, in how the reason they reject the enlightened prisoner who's trying to help them, trying to free them, is not because he was a danger to them in any physical way, right? He wasn't, he didn't have any weapons, he wasn't violent, he wasn't trying to harm them. What Plato describes in his allegory, when the enlightened prisoner comes back to free his fellow prisoners, is not an aggressive or violent or dangerous person coming back into the cave. So why then do the chained prisoners reject him outright, violently so? Well, it's not because they were in any physical danger, but something much deeper. The reason the prisoners had to reject the enlightened prisoner was because he was threatening their egos. So I'm not a psychologist. I'm not going to try to explain what the ego is or what it does, but in short, a threat to the ego is a threat to the self, the version of you that currently exists, or at least your perception of the version of you that currently exists. So when you're confronted with something that challenges that version of yourself, the immediate reaction, a natural reaction by the way, but the immediate reaction is to reject it outright. So when you're confronted with information that challenges the ego, there's essentially two paths that you can go. Either you reject the information and the current version of yourself can go on unchanged. That is what the ego wants. That is what the ego is desperately trying to achieve, that path. The other path is you accept that information and the current version of you dies and a new version of you is created. And that is now what carries you through life, a new version of yourself. The ego is desperately trying to avoid that path. So the reason the prisoners in the cave reject the enlightened prisoner that's coming to free them, coming to help them, is to avoid ego death. The ego is so powerful, so strong in its efforts to protect the current version of yourself that they would rather reject help than have the current version of themselves die, even though that new version might be a better version. So like I mentioned in those early videos, my intent with this channel was to first ease into things, to try and keep the ego's defense mechanisms at bay, rather than dive right in and have the defense mechanisms go up and you reject me right out the gate. Those baby steps that we were taking are pretty much done. We're going to start taking some more adult steps. I don't know, but the concepts that we discuss are going to get a bit more challenging to the ego, and that natural reaction, that immediate knee-jerk reaction to reject me is gonna come. You're gonna feel it, and it's okay. I want you to feel it, but I want you to recognize it. How this normally plays out to the untrained mind is you don't notice it. Rather than recognizing that this reaction is occurring, what typically happens is your mind will conjure up a way to dismiss what I'm saying, or maybe just dismiss me outright, in a way that appears to not defy logic or reason. So you might say that I'm being naive, or maybe I'm oversimplifying something, or I'm being inconsistent with something I've said in the past, or maybe something I said in the past was wrong, so you think I'm must be wrong now. And any of that might actually be true, by the way. I'm not saying that I have all the answers here at all. These are all tools that your ego will use to reject me, to ensure that I am not a threat to your current self. And all of this happens in a split second, right? The mind just instantly does all this, again, to protect the ego, to protect the current version of yourself. And it happens in an instant. And most of us go through life without ever recognizing that this is actually happening. And that's the purpose of this video, is to get you in the mindset of being able to recognize that it's happening, when it's happening. And you know, the destination where I want to take this channel, we're going to need to be able to engage in ideas. And yeah, we can disagree. That's totally fine. But you're not gonna make it. You're not gonna get out of the cave if you just dismiss it outright. You'll be stuck in there, a chained prisoner forever. And that's what we're trying to avoid here. You want to be able to engage with ideas, even if they are uncomfortable, actually, especially if they're uncomfortable, and be able to decide for yourself whether that is useful information or not. So to be clear, I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm asking you to stay with me long enough to actually disagree with me, should, you know, that be your conclusion. But to just dismiss me outright, I believe is a disservice to yourself. It's a guaranteed way to stay chained in the cave. And to be honest, most people are going to stay in the cave. And again, that's fine. That's what I've been saying since the very beginning of this channel. Those who have ears to hear, let them hear. Those who have eyes to see, let them see. That's okay if that's not you. But those people are out there. And I need to find those people. My people. Now, having said all that, I don't want you to reject me, right? I want you to stay on this journey of enlightenment with me. We're doing this together. Remember, this channel is about truth and love, because I believe that is the answer to all the messed up problems we have in the world right now. So in the next video, I'm going to provide some tools in how I address this issue of ego resistance. It does not come naturally to, I don't think, anybody. It's a very challenging reaction to overcome, right? It's the body, it's the psyche's natural way of protecting you. So it's not easy by any means to even identify that this knee-jerk reaction is happening, but it's definitely not easy to overcome it, right? Because you essentially have to accept ego death, accept that the current version of you is not the best version of you, and be willing to look forward in life with a new version of yourself. And you know, that uncertainty can be very intimidating, and that's kind of what we have. That's what we're grappling with when we're unchaining ourselves from the cave. Because remember, you have the key. Now, will you use the key? We're gonna find out. Stick with me. I am going somewhere with all this, but we're still just getting started. I really want to take this slow because I want as many people as possible to use the key.